Oh, my love.
I still need to return the battery too. What?
Oh, snap. Yeah, you gotta
That's
get
money.
that.
That's $100, man.
I know, we'll return it. Look, we're live. I don't know if it's showing face yet, but... No, I don't think it's showing face.
It's just our voices.
Yeah, I think it's just our voices.
Talking about a car battery.
But I'm very sure that,
It's on?
Yeah, it's doing it. That it's recording right now. Oh, that's tight. Okay, it's a little bubble.
Yeah, you're...
I could carry it. Yeah, baby.
Yay, good job,
What's going on, you
love?
guys? It's your boy 3 Stacks in this thing, baby. I'm trying out something new. I'm learning. Comes to computers and technology, I'm basically like a caveman sometimes. But I'm getting there. Essentially, I found a way to record deck profiles to you guys without live streaming and without having to buy the cards in real life. So this is just going to make content a lot more efficient, and now you guys get to see more decks that you want that I naturally don't have. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go down to Deck Constructor. I'm on Dueling Book. I'll be able to get dueling replays or just combos on Edo Pro. I downloaded Edo Pro Project Ignis, moving up in the world, you know. And I'm going to be able to do combo videos off of that where you guys can see it online, so that way that I don't have to bust out on my card. So it's just less work for me. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go to Deck Constructor. He said Nexus is the buy. I gotta wait for this to load up. So this is essentially the Zephyr deck list that I showcased on my channel. I'm not gonna do that. That's already been showcased. What I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys this monstrosity right here. Dang, which one is it? I'm trying to remember. Haha! Danger Dark World, you guys. I know for certain that you guys definitely are wanting to see this one. So showcasing to you guys Danger Dark Worlds. I still don't have all the Danger cards in real life, so essentially what I'm missing in real life is the Ogopogos, the Jackalope, and the Chupacabras. 2 Chupacabras, 3 Ogopogos, and a Jackalope. That makes a huge difference for the Danger Dark World. So here's my profile as is. I'll explain the card choices, the interactions as we go along. The extra deck varies because I'm not playing an extra link variant anymore, since extra linking is not as impactful as it used to be, because effectively there are certain there are certain strategies that utilize different mechanics that don't require link zones to be open. So henceforth, me extra linking them, I wouldn't get the best benefit out of it. Sure, it's a big board, you know, I can essentially have almost 7 monsters on my field, but the extra linking is really outdated. So now I'm just setting up a board of multiple interruptions after I hand loop my opponent, potentially for 2 to 4. So the key cards in this deck, obviously for the Dark Worlds, how this deck operates, if you guys don't know, it's very risky. There's an RNG factor to it. But once you get the engine rolling, you have so many cards in your hand that it's very difficult for your Dangers to miss. This is a lot easier to pull off in real life because I feel like sometimes these online simulators are very biased. I don't understand, you know, Dangers online is kind of weird. But we'll get into the list. I'm going to press sort. Alright, so it was already sorted. So we're playing 3 copies of Brow. Brow is one of the strongest Dark Worlds, and he's obviously one of the best cards to discard for your Dangers. What you're doing in this deck is you're trying to dig for this card right here. This is essentially one of your win conditions in itself, because as you're digging for this, you're baiting out hand traps. So by the time you get to the beginning of the end, your opponent will have at least used, if they had to, they will have at least used 2 hand traps on you. Whether you're summoning Curios to bait an Ash Blossom, or if you're basically going, because once you get Guru, if you get lucky and you get Guru early, you turn off impermanence because you summon him to your opponent's side of the field. So the way this deck plays around hand traps is very, in particular way, it's very effective. It's just that RNG, you know, factor where the Dangers have to hit the right cards and not get discarded themselves. But this is a win condition in itself. Essentially, it says draw 3 cards. We don't care about the cost because by the time you get to this card in the right setup, you're gonna this is gonna lead into probably Desires, the Spellbook engine, more Allures, or another win condition in itself, card destruction. So Brow's very important for filtering and circulating your hand, because every Danger inherently is a -1. People say they plus. you basically get a body on field and your hand size decreases to 4. You'll draw a card, but your hand size will decrease every time you resolve a danger. But with Dark Worlds, as you're discarding cards like Brow, and as we get further into the profile, other Dark World monsters, they allow you to capitalize off those resources that you would normally lose, and you either break even or plus. As long as you can break even and keep your hand size proportionate to 5 or 6, you have the highest probability of your dangers being able to resolve. Next up, this is another win condition of the deck, Ceruli, the Guru of the Dark World. If this card is discarded to the graveyard by a card effect, you special summon it from the graveyard to your opponent's side of the field in face-up defense position. When this card is special summoned by the effect of a Dark World card, your opponent must discard a card. This effect is always going to apply to you. This is a very kooky card. It's unorthodox how this deck plays, but I love this deck. It's really fun. So essentially what you're doing is you're discarding this. By any means, as long as it's not cost, this card will trigger in graveyard to special itself to your opponent's field. Because it's now their card, its effect applies to you that you must discard one card. The important thing to note is since you're discarding a card, you get to pick the card. And the secondary thing is because it's your opponent's card, the Dark Worlds get their strongest effect. Dark Worlds not only have one effect, they have 2 effects. The strongest effects are always if they're discarded by your opponent's card effect. So when you hit a Brow off of the effect of Ceruli, you're going to draw not 1, but you're going to draw 2 cards. When we get more into the Dark World monsters, you'll see that they get both effects if they're discarded by Ceruli. So you're always going to get the first effect no matter what. Can you just close the door? I don't want them to hit it, baby. But you're always going to get the first effect no matter what. That's what's imperative. But Ceruli is accomplishing the hand loop for you. So we obviously play, I maxed out on all the dangers. 3 Bigfoots, 3 Chupacabras, 3 Dogmans, 3 Mothmans, 1 Nessie, 3 Ogopogos, 3 Thunderbirds, 1 Jackalope, and 1 Tsuchinoko. These cards are self-explanatory for this archetype to be able to be held together. Dark Worlds cannot get their effects unless they're discarded. I feel there's no better cards that allow you to discard than the Dangers themselves because they swarm the field, they bait interruptions, and you can just resume critical mass immediately whenever you need to OTK your opponent. One of the highest strengths of playing Danger cards in your deck like Bigfoot, Dogman, Danger Thunderbird, and also even cards like, for example, Nessie and the 3 Mothmans, is these cards can easily bait negations. When you're playing against boards who basically, like, let's say your opponent has established board with the Arclight, with the Borreload Savage, and an Appaloosa. Prime example. Let's say you reveal a Bigfoot. Now, because you have 6 cards in hand because you're going second, there's a very high probability of that Bigfoot getting on the field. So your opponent has 2 choices. Let the Bigfoot resolve and hope that it just basically gets discarded, which, again, even if it gets discarded and banished, the dangers will always trigger. They don't have to touch the grave. They're not like Dark Worlds. So no matter what, Bigfoot's always going to bait and negate. That's something that's incredible about him going second. So if your opponent doesn't negate the activation of it and he's not once per turn to reveal, essentially you're either going to summon him and then attack over an Arclight, a Savage, or an Appaloosa, which Appaloosa is probably the best bet to go for, or the Arclight, or he's going to be discarded, sent to the banish zone, and still basically just target and bait and negate. But the thing about these is that they're very, very good attack statistics. Bigfoot, Thunderbird, and Dogman specifically, 24, 28, and 3K. These statistics enable you to attack over threats like Appaloosa, Borreload Savage, Arclight. Also, there's other generic cards, but these are ones people are typical because everybody's using the same engine, everybody's playing the same combo, everybody's doing the same stuff. So they're summoning the same boss monsters even though they're playing different decks. For Adamanticators, their board's probably going to be literally Appaloosa, Savage, and Arclight. If it's Eldritch, it's probably going to be either a Calamities combo, which is absolutely fine, and if it's not, because with Calamities, they still have to call the attribute. That's something that's beautiful with this deck, is if they call the wrong attribute, your Dangers can still reveal themselves in hand, because the Calamities only applies to the attribute you called, and when they hit the field, then they become the attribute, but they resolve in hand. And your Dark Worlds resolve in grave. So if your opponent doesn't call Dark, even though they summon Calamities, they can still get bodied. Meaning that you're just going to summon a board that they can't break and just pass. But effectively, if you're understanding my drift, you have critical mass. You spam and swarm the field with gigantic monsters, and you, instead of baiting the gates by going into power plays like Nightmares, or even summoning boss monsters, anything like these, like even Curios, you can save your resources waste your battle phase, basically attack over the negates. Main phase 2, you're going to summon a board that your opponent will not be able to break. It's super duper powerful how this deck operates. So you want to max out on all the dangers because it gives you the highest chance to make sure that you can draw through a vast majority of your deck while also putting bodies on the field. You're swarming with this deck. This deck is going to play around Nibiru or it's going to play through Nibiru. Because of how it operates and the way it summons, you're always going to be able to summon Apollousa as your 5th summon, because if you pay attention to how the cards resolve, you can counter summons as you're summoning. So when you reveal the 4th danger, you now realize that's your 4th summon. So then you just link in the Apollousa and you just keep summoning your dangers and your Dark Worlds. So it's not really that hard. And even if you get Nibiru, this deck's crazy because you're still going to have cards like Beginning of the End, Desires. You want to make sure that basically all your +1s are held until you see at least one interruption for your opponent. But anyways, continuing, we're past the dangers, which are really important for this deck. We play 2 copies of Grapha. This card is absolutely insane, you guys. Something that's very powerful about the Dark Worlds is nothing is once per turn. In fact, what makes this deck even more powerful is that it rarely has any 1 per turn clauses. The only thing once per turn that applies to this deck is going to be in the terms of Desires, the spellbook cards, and the dangerous effects when they're actually discarded. Their effects to reveal and summon being not once per turn makes this deck so dangerous. Ironic, right? But effectively, Grapha allows you to target a card on the field and destroy it if it's discarded. Hallelujah. And then basically his effect in Graveyard allows you to bounce a Dark World monster you control to the hand to summon him. Because you're bouncing a Dark World to your hand, you're increasing your hand size for your dangers to be able to resolve. You're also summoning cards like Silva, which we'll get to next, and you're basically resolving the effect. Then you bounce it to hand so that you could potentially hit it off of Guru again. That's how you get 4-card hand loops off of this deck with ease. Or you just hit multiple Ceruleas. So Grapha is insane for link climbing because as you're spamming the board with dangers and Dark Worlds like Silva basically, you're basically going to be summoning Silva, and then you're going to bounce him the hand, and then you're going to summon Grapha, then you're going to link with him. Then you're going to reveal a danger, hit the Silva, summon the danger, summon the Silva, then you're going to bounce the Silva back to hand, then you're going to summon Grapha, then you're going to link with him. That's how extra linking came so easy with this deck because of a card like Grapha. In fact, it was really difficult to do it without Grapha because it required so much more from your hand, but as Grapha's filtering and getting himself back onto the field, he's always giving you a card back to your hand, so you're basically going +1, +1, +1, +1, and it gets really out of control. Not once per turn to target and destroyed, and basically not even once per turn to bounce. And his 3rd effect, if he's discarded by your opponent's card, you basically get to, this is where it gets crazy. Let me skip over to here. So basically, this is crazy because you get to look at your, essentially look at a random card in your opponent's hand. If it's a monster, you special to your field. Back in the day when I was playing the Extra Link, this effect is crazy. Because if you're playing against a deck that has hand traps, you actually have a chance to hit out of their 5 cards one of their hand traps before they get a chance to use it. So let's say they have an Ash Blossom. Let's say they had for example, you know, a Ghost Ogre or an Effect Veiler. You could take it from their hand because the effect's already resolving, now they can't use it, and you summon it to your field as an extender, and you play through that hand trap. So this deck is so ridiculous sometimes, it doesn't even make sense. So continuing on, we have 3 copies of Silver, the Warlord of Dark World. He is the strongest Dark World for facilitating the hand loop, for gaining advantage off of Grapha, and also for maintaining your resources and your hand advantage and accumulating the critical mass. Because if he's discarded his best effect, you know, obviously to take 2 cards from your hand is amazing, but his best effect to assist you is every time he's discarded, he special summons himself. You can play more Dark Worlds like that, but you have to be very careful on your ratio that you make sure that you don't play too many Dark Worlds because they're dead without having a discard outlet. That's why if you notice, every card that's not a Dark World or a danger card is all draw cards. Every single one of them. The 3, 4, 7, 10, 13, 14 draw cards. All the deck is just gas. You don't have a problem going second. You really don't. You can just OTK out of nowhere. But Silva's best effect is if he's discarded by your opponent's card effect. He basically, while he's still in grave as he's resolving his effect, he makes your opponent take exactly 2 cards from their hand and put them in the bottom of the deck in any order and summons himself. This card, when I say this card is so difficult to hand trap, essentially the only 2 hand traps, well, I'm sorry, there's 3 hand traps in particular that you have to have in order to stop this. And it's really sad that you waste a hand trap on this because he's getting discarded off of danger, which means you're not going neg-1 at all. So your opponent's going to have a DD Crow, which is popular, or a Ghost Bell or a Gamma, which are not popular in the main deck. So effectively, in conventional means, if your opponent doesn't have the DD Crow, they're getting hand looped. That's the only way to stop Silva turn 1 conventionally. Now, if your opponent just happens to play 3 Bells, 3 Gammas, and 3 DD Crows, you're baiting a hand trap for free. So there's no downside to Silva ever, because you're either getting a free body to the field, you're either ripping 2 cards from your opponent's hand which don't touch the grave, so no graveyard effects trigger, which is why this deck has the best hand loop, period, point blank. There's no there's no debating it. It's the best hand loop ever, making your opponent put their cards back. And also, if they don't get hand looped and they do have the hand trap, or if they don't get hand looped and they don't have the hand trap, bare minimum, you're just getting a free body onto the field for you to bounce off Grapha. So continuing, we play 3 Snows. If she's discarded by a card effect, you add a Dark World card from your deck to your hand. That includes herself. Not only are these cards not once per turn, but some of them, like Snow and Brow, really don't have restrictions. Snow searches anything in the archetype of Dark World, not once per turn. And if she's sent by an opponent's card effect, you can target one of your opponent's monsters in their grave. You still add a Dark World card from your deck to your hand, then you special summon it in face-up defense position. You could take your opponent's Pankratops, you could take your opponent's boss monster, they properly summon an Arclight and you outed it, you resummon the Arclight to your field, you either use it as an extender or you use it as a negate against them. You can do so much with Snow, it's crazy. If you break your opponent's board, you're basically going to take the best monster that's not a Link monster, obviously, take your opponent's best monster that was on their field originally, and then summon it and use it against them. So this card is like an insane Monster Reborn. On top of you getting to search the Dark World card, you also get the Monster Reborn. Remember, this is why Ceruli is so insane in this deck. He's really hard to stop. You have to have the DD Crow legit. Like, there's no conventional hand trap except DD Crow that is popular to shut down some of these cards. And they're not once per turn, so they can bait you with the DD Crow. You could bait the DD Crow and just use another copy, whether you're searching off Snow or not. It's crazy. And once Ceruli hits the field, remember, Impermanence is turned off now. So you play around Impermanence, you play around Nibiru, you play around Ash. Like, literally the only way this deck loses is to itself if you miss too many of your dangers and your hand size gets too small. But Snow's insane. And then these cards are self-explanatory. 1 Blue Boy, 3 Allures, 1 card destruction. This card can be a win con in itself. 3 Desires, even though you play cards that you care about multiples of, the fact is the card's a +1. The reason why I play so many +1 spells in my deck is to make sure my hand size can stay above 5. At 5, that's the minimum for me. As long as it's above 5, I can do pretty much anything that I want to do because the percentage and ratios are on my side. Then I play 3 Beginning of the End. This is probably one of the most broken spells in the entire game. Not only is it not once per turn, but it says banish. Basically, forget the banish. It says draw 3. Every time you get to this card, it's super free. Like, it's super free. You've already baited all the hand traps that can stop this card once you get there. This card is insane. It's one of the reasons why this deck is so high ceiling. We play 1 Gates. This card boosts all your fiends, including your nightmares. You can banish a fiend for cost, discard a fiend, and draw. Because Chupacabra is a fiend, that has synergy with the Dark Worlds. But effectively, this is an extender. You search it off Snow, and you're basically going to banish and discard a Brow and keep drawing. Or if you're getting unlucky with your dangers, this is why Gates is so powerful to play. If you're getting unlucky with your dangers, and you need to get to your hand loop. So if you happen to just open Gates and you already had let's say you just search Gates and you already had a fiend in your grave, now all you need is Ceruli and Silva, which is really easy to get to. You can just activate Gates, banish, discard Ceruli, draw 1, trigger Ceruli to summon itself to your opponent's field, and then he makes you discard Silva, and your opponent loses 2 cards while you gain advantage. It's crazy how this deck operates. To finish up the main deck, we play Dark World Brainwashing. This trap is a non-once per turn monster negation. It turns the text of your opponent's monster effect into, you basically get to target a Dark World monster on the field, return it to hand, and the activated effect becomes discard 1 random card from your opponent's hand. I cannot tell you how crazy this card is. This card is literally insane, you guys. Not literally, but it's so crazy. Because you're basically target a Dark World monster on the field. you can even bounce your own Ceruleans that you gave your opponent. And that also applies to your Dark Worlds like Silva, which is incredible. So every time you resolve this, your opponent's going to lose their monster effect and you get to plus. Because no matter what you discard, all of your cards have good effects engraved. And if there's any spells, they're going to be set. So this card's crazy. It's easy to keep your hand size. This is one of the freest ways to play around Dark Ruler no more, because you get negates that can't be stopped by Dark Ruler. The side deck is pretty conventional: 3 Lava Golems, 3 Dark Rulers, 3 Chalice. Chalice is for Abyss Dweller. Effectively, Abyss Dweller can hurt a vast portion of the deck. You still get to draw, you still get to swarm, but you don't get the effects of the Dark Worlds, which is really important, and the dangers from time to time when you need them. So Chalice, you can also arguably play Widow Anchors and Cypher Gear Gammas to make sure that if you ever get faced against a Dweller, you want to know your deck's weakness. And since I know pretty much the only way to make this deck simplified in a sense where it's not really going to be as aggressive is through a Dweller. So I side decked it out for that. We played 3 Lightning Storms and 3 Evenly Matched. If you're scared of Dweller, you can even cut some of these cards because they're not necessary. Honestly, this deck gets the job done with the main deck better than anything. A lot of the times, these cards can be very clunky in your hand. These are really just for situations when you're facing something that really is going to require too much resources from your hand to deal with. That's why naturally some of these are like 1 for 5s or 1 for 2. The extra deck is 1 Dweller, 1 Coach King. You summon this in the middle of your combos to extend your plays. This basically becomes a beginning of the end, except you get to burn and you naturally draw into the beginning of the end. There's no better feeling to get hand trapped twice, summon this card, draw 3, draw beginning of the end, activate it, and go back to 6 or 7 cards in hand after your opponent hand trapped you twice. Then you hand loop the last two cards out of their hand, leaving them with 1 card and a top deck against a fully established board. Titanic is basically a generic negate. Dugaris extends your combos too because you get to draw 2 and discard. So if you have a Cerule that you've been trying to hit because the dangers are still a percentage chance, you can basically use Dugaris to guarantee Cerule and Silva. So keep in mind, even though the dangers have a probability of hitting or missing, I do play cards in my main and my extra deck to make sure I can still get my combo consistently where I have control over it because the dangers are random. Access Code Talker is a win con. Opelousas is very generically applicable. It's just a solid monster to injure boards on. Curios' job is to send Grapha. And if you already have a Grapha, you're going to send another Grapha. Another purpose it fills is loading your grave for beginning of the end. And it also baits hand traps. And in the grind, it can be super impressive. 1 IP, 1 Nightmare Cerberus, 1 Griffin, 1 Phoenix, and 1 Unicorn. You are summoning the Nightmares turn 1. You're making a really, really crazy Tri-Gate board with Opelousa, typically Griffin, things of that nature. Sometimes it can be redundant to have Griffin and Opelousa, but for me, that's just like insanity. Like basically, Opelousa is covering everything Griffin doesn't cover. Griffin only covers special summon monsters. Opelousa covers the monsters in general. So to me, that's a crazy board against combo decks. I have Tri-Gate for an Omni Negate. I have the the Dark World Brainwashing up, typically because the deck's so consistent. And my opponent's naturally playing with 2 cards, which is just not easy. And the Unicorn's there so that my next turn, I can basically draw 4. So it's just crazy how this deck works. 1 Skull Dread. This card, obviously, you guys know what this does. And I play Topologic Trishbania. Sometimes you don't need the effect, but it is very, very key and clutch. This could easily be any other Topologic, but this is sometimes used to link climb so you can get more darts into your grave for beginning of the end. That's why I just really like this as a flex spot. And Tri-Gate is really, really easy to get, and I like this card going second too because you can easily swarm summon Tri-Gate boards and start targeting to banish and just getting rid of problem cards. So that's the deck profile, you guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you want to see duels with this, test hands or random combos, I'd have to go to Edo Pro and do that on a separate video. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. God bless you. Make good choices. Don't hurt your brain cells. Stay tuned for future content. Have a wonderful day, you guys. I'm going to pray. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Jesus, thy kingdom come, and thy will be done on earth just as it is in heaven. Please give us this day our daily bread, Lord, and please forgive us of our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, Father, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the glory, and the power, forever. In the mighty name of Jesus I pray. Thank you, Heavenly Father. Amen. Some cool tech cards that I will point out, because your normal summon doesn't matter. I just want my normal summon to be a +1, because for me, the most important thing about this deck is hand size. You could play cards like Cyberstein. You could play Zephyros the Elite also, because Zephyros the Elite allows you, once you get in a grave, so it could be another good Curios target, you start bouncing your dangers to hand and then just activate them again. So you could arguably play even 3 Zephyros. So I'm just giving you guys some more tech spots, but honestly, how the deck is right now, without any situational cards, it's very consistent. Zephyros is good too, but also at the same time, there's a hit or miss factor. I'm not saying it's bad, because really it is very helpful in this deck, and you could argue you play 3. You could play Cyberstein, you could play Phantom Sky Blaster, you could play Vanity's Fiend, you could play so many powerful normal summons because this deck never needed a normal summon. That's why the Lava Golem could even be Spear Mode, but I feel like Spear Mode's easy to play around, whereas Lava Golem it's really not at all. Because honestly, like, this card is not even once per turn. So I play a deck that draws so much, I can Lava Golem multiple times. But thank you guys for watching, and peace out, yo.